अस्सलाम वालेकुम, मेरा नाम है मोहम्मद सुभान और आप देख रहे हैं एस बी टेक। आज मैं आपको बताने जा रहा हूँ व्हाट आर फॉर्म्स। यू आर डेवलपिंग solutions but you need time to save more time and build faster. What if some of your build problems have already been solved for you? Well, it's true, someone has already figured out many key development processes and they are contained in frameworks and libraries that are used every day in software development. So, what exactly are frameworks and libraries? Let's say you're not a developer, but instead you work as carpenter. You make chairs and sell them online. As a carpenter, you don't design a new hammer for every chair you make. It makes much more sense to use an existing hammer, but of course, you're a developer. As such, it's important for you to know that to speed up development, developers use already developed frameworks and libraries in their application development. These might be open source, meaning that the source code is freely available for anyone to modify and build from. There are thousands of open source libraries and frameworks available, or there might be proprietary ones that are licensed or developed internally. Many developers use the terms frameworks and libraries interchangeably. So what's the difference between them? Libraries are usable pieces of code that can be used by your application. They are purpose built to provide a specific functionality. Whereas, to give a more technical example, you are adding a small e-commerce website. When a user wants to register, they need to provide their email address. Email addresses, while easy to read, can be complicated to validate. In fact, email addresses are defined across several techniques specification. That's a lot of reading just to validate an email. Even if you do read through all the specification, there's no point in spending hours or even days implementing their set standards because you have to access so many readily available libraries to validate email address. It is for specific functionality like validating an email address that libraries are useful. A developer simply uses the library to access the functionality they require. As a result, they can have more time to continue focusing on the development of their application. Frameworks, on the other hand, provide a structure for developers to build with. Consider this in the context of our carpenter analogy. As a carpenter, you create a lot of different chairs, therefore, there would be a blueprint for each chair to speed up building them. You can decide the type of wood to use, but the dimensions and style of the chair are always the same. Frameworks acts as a structure where the developer provides their own code that the framework interacts with. For example, there are many frameworks for developing web applications. These frameworks handle functionality that is common to all web applications, such as receiving HTTP requests and sending HTTP responses. The developer then adds their own code that implements the functionality of the web application. For instance, with the e-commerce website example, a framework would handle receiving HTTP requests. The developer would implement code that processes the request and returns a response from which the framework would send a response over HTTP. Now let's compare how the framework relate to libraries. Most frameworks use many libraries. The libraries that the framework use can be used for your application. If you wish your application can also use other libraries, you also need to consider when to use a framework and when to use a library. Frameworks are considered opinionated and libraries are considered unopinionated. This is defined as a degree of freedom available to the developer to choose how to code a feature. The opinionatedness will vary between frameworks, but by definition, they will always be more opinionated than a library. The benefit of this is that they can replace libraries as needed. For example, when new technologies become available, frameworks to find the libraries flow and control of an application, whereas with the libraries, those are left to developer to decide. As as with everything, there are advantages and disadvantages to both. Frameworks are a great way to reduce development time and to enforce a structure on how code is written. They have many best practices already in place and contain most of what is needed to develop an application. However, sometimes you may find that the way you need to code something does not fit into the structure of the framework. Other times you may find that some of the libraries the framework uses may conflict with the library that you are required to use and cause compatibility issues. If an application is built without a framework, the developer will need to decide on the set of libraries they wish to use to achieve the functionality they must deliver. They will also need to take care that the selected libraries can work together. The upside to this is that they can replace libraries as needed. For example, if a new better library is released, the developer can replace the huge usage of the old library. This is much easier than replacing a framework. Frameworks and libraries give you the opportunity to reuse existing web applications. This can result in faster development, fewer errors, and more time for you to spend on the essential features of your application. Instead of reinventing the wheel, you can use frameworks and libraries that are designed specifically to help your web app development processes. Thank you so much.